to enjoy your time here and find peace in the stories we tell. If you liked the story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to support the channel. The first day I transmigrated into the book as the stepmother of the great villain, my stepson Grooming stood before my bed holding a bowl of pitch black medicine. His eyes were dark and gloomy as he spoke in a voice cold as ice. "Mother, you're sick. Drink the medicine." I looked at the eerie steam rising from the bowl, then at the killing intent in his eyes, intent no 10-year-old child should ever possess, and understood everything in an instant. This was the original host's memory. It was the first time the great villain Grooming made his move, attempting to poison me to death. The evil stepmother had only been in the family for 3 days, yet she had already used every possible method to torment him. In the original story I didn't drink it. Instead, I screamed, smashed the entire bowl over his head, then called the servants to string him up and beat him mercilessly. From that moment on, an irreconcilable blood feud was formed. But now, as I looked at him, I suddenly burst into laughter. I propped up my weakened body and sat up, waving at him with the gentlest voice possible. "Singer, come here. Do you really think that after killing me, you can kill your foolish father as well, seize the Gu family assets, raise an army to rebel, ascend the throne, and finally get your revenge?" Grooming's body suddenly twitched. The hand holding the bowl trembled violently. I pulled him to the side of the bed, casually took the bowl of medicine and set it aside, then reached under the pillow and fished out a small notebook. I had stayed up all night writing it with a brush, my handwriting crooked and ugly. I stuffed it into his hands. The cover clearly displayed 7 large characters, discussions on the imperial examinations and corruption. I patted his small head, my voice full of earnestness. "Silly child, rebelling is the highest risk, lowest profit business there is. Listen to mother, stop thinking about rebellion. We'll take the imperial examinations, become powerful officials, and then become great corrupt officials. Wouldn't that be much sweeter?" Grooming clutched the thin notebook tightly, his entire body frozen stiff, as if what he held wasn't paper but a piece of burning iron. His small face, pale from long-term malnutrition, was deathly white. His pitch black eyes stared fixedly at me, filled with shock, suspicion, vigilance, and a trace of fear at having all his secrets seen through. "What nonsense are you talking about?" His voice was hoarse, carrying the characteristic rasp of a young boy, yet he tried hard to appear calm. I smiled, not minding his stubborn denial at all. I knew exactly what this child was thinking deep down. He was the surviving orphan of the previous dynasty's crown prince. The Gu family had taken him in only as part of a political show staged by the current emperor to display his benevolence. His father, the Gu family head, Grooming, was nothing more than a playboy who only cared about romance and poetry. He obeyed me, his newly married wife, without question. The original host was the second daughter of the current Grand Preceptor. She had been married into the family specifically to monitor and suppress him, ensuring he would never have a chance to rise. In the book, Grooming endured humiliation in the Gu family for many years. Finally, in his 20th year, he personally killed Grooming and me, carrying the hidden treasures left behind by the previous dynasty's Ministry of Revenue. He raised an army in rebellion and became the greatest villain in the entire novel. In the end, he was tragically shot through the heart by a single arrow from the male lead. That young, righteous general who was as bright as the moon and wind. He had brains, willpower, connections, and even a first pot of gold, yet he chose the most difficult path. Even I felt it wasn't worth it for him. Whether I'm spouting nonsense or not, you know best in your heart. I leaned against the head of the bed and slowly spoke. The path of rebellion sounds majestic, but in reality, 9 deaths and 1 life. Even if you win and sit on the throne like a dragon, do you think it's easy to sit there? Below you would be a pack of wolves with tiger eyes lying in wait. If you lose, extermination of your 9 clans. You won't even have a tombstone. I raised a finger and tapped the notebook in his hand. But the imperial examinations are different. My voice was full of bewitching temptation, like the best multi-level marketing lecturer. Think about it. Study for 10 years, pass the exams with flying colors and step into the officialdom. From then on, the sky is high for birds to fly, the sea is wide for fish to leap. If you want revenge, do you need to wield a blade yourself? No need. The brush in your hand is far more useful than any knife. If you dislike someone, just submit a memorial and have him removed from office and stripped of his post. Want money? It's even simpler. Become an official with real power. In 3 years as a prefect, You'll have 100,000 tals of snow, white silver. Have you ever seen any rebel leader live as comfortably as the current head minister? Gu Xing's breathing clearly grew heavier. The knuckles gripping the notebook turned white. I knew my words were like a key prying open the door to his heart, which had been sealed shut by hatred. But the imperial examinations required writing the words of the sages and showing loyalty to the monarch and love for the country. He struggled and voiced his final doubt. I laughed out loud. Silly boy. Why are you so naive? Does what the mouth says have to match what the heart thinks? When writing essays, praise the emperor until he's as happy as if he had won a battle. He'll grant you high positions and generous salaries. Once you're in power and the authority is in your hands, whether you're loyal or treacherous, isn't that up to you to decide? I leaned closer to him and lowered my voice, enunciating every word clearly. True power isn't making others fear the blade in your hand, it's making them beg for the brush in your hand. Twist the rules in the palm of your hand, and let your enemies follow the game you set, step by step, walking into a dead end. That is called an open plot that kills without spilling blood. I pointed at the notebook. Open discussions on the imperial examinations and corruption and take a look. Chapter 1. On the self, cultivation of a corrupt official. Mother has prepared nothing but pure, practical substance for you. Gu Xing's body trembled slightly. He lowered his head to look at the notebook that had overturned his entire worldview, then raised his head to look at me again. The killing intent in his eyes had long since vanished, replaced by a complicated mix of bewilderment, shock, and a trace of eerie curiosity. After a long time, he gripped the notebook tightly, turned, and left. He even forgot the bowl of poison. I knew the fish had taken the bait. In the following days, Gu Xing locked himself in his room and refused to see anyone. I finally had some peace and quiet to familiarize myself with my new identity. The original host's name was Ahanyan, the second daughter of the Grand Preceptor's mansion. She had no brains but a vicious heart. My nominal husband, Gu Xuming, was a hedonistic young master who loved literary elegance. He spent his days either writing poetry or painting. He didn't care about household affairs at all. In this massive Gu family, the inner courtyard was controlled by the old madam, a greedy and vicious old woman. The shops and land outside were held by several uncles and cousins from the side branches, and they complained about losses every year. The entire Gu family was nothing but an empty shell, already hollowed out by moths inside. In the original story, under such circumstances, Gu Xing relied on his own ruthlessness and the help of the previous dynasty's remnants to carve out a bloody path. But now that I'm here, his path should be walked differently. 3 days later, Gu Xing finally stepped out of his room. He looked even thinner, with heavy dark circles under his eyes, but those eyes shone with a startling brightness, like a lone wolf in the darkness who had finally found his direction. He walked up to me without performing any greeting, simply looking straight at me. In his hand he still held the notebook, its edges already worn from flipping. "You were right," he said. His voice was still hoarse, but it carried a decisiveness that didn't belong to his age. "Rebellion is the worst strategy." I nodded in satisfaction. "Good, you've thought it through." He took a deep breath. "I want to take the imperial examinations. From today onward, I want you to personally take charge of my education." When Gu Ximing heard that I wanted to personally teach Gu Xing, he was so shocked he nearly dropped the inkstone in his hand. "Madame, how could that be possible? Singer is so stubborn. It would be better to hire a strict tutor." I shot him a sideways glance. "Master, you don't trust me." Gu Xuming immediately went soft. No. Whatever madam says is correct." Too lazy to waste words on him, I directly began Gu Xing's devilish training. For the first lesson, I didn't teach him the Analects or Mencius. Instead, I took him to the account room in the southern part of the city. There, Gu Xiud, the second uncle from the side branch, was checking this year's field production under his own name. When Gu Xiud saw me bringing Gu Xing over, he smiled mockingly. "Oh my, why has the eldest sister-in-law come to this filthy place? Are you here to see second uncle's harvest for this year?" I got straight to the point. Gu Xiud immediately began complaining about hard times. "Ayo, eldest sister-in-law, don't even mention it. This year we had both natural disasters and man-made troubles. The fields didn't yield a single grain. I even had to cover quite a bit of silver myself." I smiled without saying anything and simply signaled Gu Xing to look at the account books. Gu Xing frowned as he flipped through a few pages and whispered to me, "I can't see any problems in the books." Is that so? I stepped forward, casually flipped to one page, and pointed at a number. Second uncle, if I remember correctly, our family's water fields west of the city yielded 3 dan per mu last year. This year the weather has been favorable with timely rain and good winds, so why does the book only record 2 dan? Gu Xiu's eyelid twitched. He forced a smile. This it must be because the tenants were lazy. Oh, I flipped another page. Then why is this meltage fee paid to the government 3/10 higher than last year's market price? I heard the new prefect is famously upright and has strictly forbidden his subordinates from collecting extra fees. Cold sweat broke out on Gu Xiu's forehead. I continued. And this repair of the irrigation channels, this reward for the head worker, and this one here too, second uncle, your books are really clean. With every sentence I spoke, Gu Xiu's face grew paler by another shade. Gu Xing stood to the side, his eyes widening more and more. He had never imagined that an ordinary-looking account book could hide so many tricks. In the end, Gu Xiu could no longer hold on. With a thud, he knelt on the ground. Eldest sister, in law, I was wrong. I won't dare anymore. I ignored him and only turned to ask Gu Xing, did you see it clearly? Gu Xing nodded in a daze. I patted him and began today's first lesson. Singer, remember this well. The writings of the sages are the bricks you use to knock on the door of fame and success. But these things here are the real skills that will allow you to stand firm in the officialdom later. One number can destroy an entire family. One document can change the ownership of a piece of land. This is the power of the brush. Your second uncle's method is the lowest form of embezzlement, full of loopholes. A true master can turn fake into real, making it impossible for anyone to investigate. This subject is called accounting. No. It's called the art of bureaucratic governance. Looking at Gu Xing's increasingly bright eyes, I smiled with satisfaction. My child, welcome to the real world of power. After dealing with Gu Xiu, I followed the clues and knocked on the doors of every side branch member who controlled the Gu family's properties one by one. The process was very simple. I had Gu Xing hold all the account books and check every entry. He was extremely intelligent and could infer 3 things from one. Very quickly, he went from a complete novice to an expert at auditing books. The falsified accounts those uncles and cousin had made had nowhere to hide before him. I didn't drive them to utter ruin. I only forced them to spit out all the silver they had embezzled over the years, principal and interest, and took back control of the family properties. The Gu family old madam was so angry she took to her bed. She pointed at me and cursed me as a disaster. I directly ordered the servants to lock the doors of her courtyard and serve her only thin porridge and plain vegetables 3 times a day, under the fine name of praying for the old madam and requiring a clear heart with few desires. Gu Xiuming watched my thunderous and sweeping methods, and was so terrified that he didn't dare say another word. Every day he hid in his study, pretending he didn't exist. In just half a month, the entire Gu family had fallen completely under my control. That day, I slapped a thick stack of silver notes in front of Gu Xing. This is the silver we recovered. Part of it will be used to build connections, hire the best teachers for you, and buy the rarest books. The rest is your operating funds. Gu Xing looked at the pile of notes with complicated eyes. What do you want me to do? Very simple. I took out a sheet of paper. On it was a list I had already prepared. Go and make connections with these people. On the list were the most reputable scholars in the city, seemingly ordinary but actually powerful yeoman clerks, and even the most famous courtesan in the brothel. Being an official isn't just about studying well. Connections are your weapon, I taught him. Toward scholars, you must be courteous and humble to the worthy, making them feel that your future is limitless and worth investing in. Toward yeoman clerks, give them small favors. At critical moments, they will provide you with unexpected information. As for those courtesans, I paused, noticing the slight redness on Gu Xing's ears, and smiled. Don't let your mind wander. That's the place with the most abundant information flow. The 3 teachings and 9 streams, princes and young masters. Once drunk, they spill everything. What you need to learn is how to sift out what's useful to you from that chaotic pile of information. This is called intelligence analysis. Gu Xing gripped the list tightly and remained silent for a long time. I knew that for him, this was another complete overhaul of his worldview. From childhood, he had been taught that a gentleman does not stand under a crumbling wall and must clearly draw lines with petty people. Yet here I was teaching him how to dance with petty people, and even use them. Go on. I encouraged him. Don't be afraid. You're someone who wants to become a powerful minister, not a saint. Water that's too clear has no fish, and a person who's too picky has no friends. The truly formidable person is one who can bloom the most beautiful flower from the mud. Gushing left. Following my instructions, he began clumsily but determinedly weaving his first network of connections in life. He was no longer the gloomy youth who only hid in the shadows, nourishing himself with hatred. He learned to smile at others, learned social pleasantries, and learned to raise toasts and exchange cups at the drinking table. I watched his changes with joy in my heart. I hired the best teacher in the entire city for him, teaching him the classics, histories, philosophy, and literary collections, alongside poetry and foo. During the day, he was an elegant, diligent, and studious youth. At night, he returned to me, and I began teaching him the heart techniques of emperors and the study of darkness. I told him that the legalist arts of Han Fizi were the true core of imperial rule. How does a ruler control his ministers? How does he balance various forces? How does he make his subordinates both respect and fear him, while being willing to risk their lives for him? I told him stories of powerful ministers in history, like Li Sai and Zhao Gao, how they climbed step by step to high positions, and how a single mistake led to their deaths and the extermination of their clans. You must learn their methods, but you must avoid their endings. I looked at him with a serious expression. Singer, remember this well. Power is the best aphrodisiac, but it is also the deadliest poison. Never let yourself be bewitched by power. Always remember, you use power to achieve your own goals. Then what is my goal? He asked back, a trace of confusion in his eyes. Your goal, I smiled. Of course it's long-term stability and enjoying the pleasures that power brings. For example, wealth that rivals the national treasury. For example, a life where you can do whatever your heart desires. For example, watching your enemies fall one by one while you stand safely at the peak. Guxing nodded half, understanding. I knew he couldn't fully comprehend these things yet, but it was fine. The seed had been planted. Sooner or later, it would take root and sprout, growing into a towering tree that no one could shake, and I was the most patient gardener. Time flew by quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. Guxing had grown from a weak youth into a tall, straight young man. His appearance inherited the superior bloodline of the imperial family, peerlessly handsome. Only a layer of cold aloofness between his brows remained, difficult to dispel. In these 3 years, he had been like a sponge, madly absorbing all the knowledge I taught him. Under the guidance of famous teachers, his scholarship advanced by leaps and bounds every day. His methods, under my personal teaching by words and example, also grew increasingly sophisticated. He was no longer the child who needed me to hold his hand to teach him how to audit books or how to present gifts. The Gu family was now managed perfectly under his control. The properties that had been ruined by the side branches had revived in his hands and were even more prosperous than before. Using the methods I taught, he combined kindness and might to subdue both the local thugs in the city and the yeoman clerks in the government offices, turning them all into his people. Gu Shuming and the old madam had long been pushed to the sidelines, becoming mere decorations in the Gu residence. And I had transformed from an evil stepmother into Madame Gu, whom everyone feared and respected. No one knew what kind of demon lurked beneath Madame Gu's gentle and tranquil exterior. No one knew. The Gu family's eldest young master appeared gentle as jade and exceptionally talented before the world, but behind closed doors, he discussed with me how to use a small accident to completely bankrupt a rival's water transport business. The two of us were the most compatible partners, and the most dangerous accomplices. The provincial examinations were drawing closer and closer. That night, Gu Xing came to find me. The day after tomorrow is the provincial exam. He stood before me with a somewhat complicated expression. I asked, "Are you ready?" "Yes." He hesitated for a moment before continuing. "I heard that the chief examiner this time is Imperial Censor Chen. He is upright and impartial, and he hates opportunists the most." I smiled. "What are you worried about? Are you worried about the gifts you gave before? Or that the people you've pulled into your circle will make this Censor Chen unhappy?" Gu Xing didn't speak, which was as good as admitting it. I walked over and straightened his collar. "Singer, you still haven't learned the essence yet." I sighed. "I didn't teach you these things so you could opportunistically cheat. I taught you so that under any rules, you can still move freely and at ease." People of the clean stream like Imperial Censor Chen naturally look down on gold, silver, and jewels. But what if it's an authentic calligraphy piece by the previous dynasty's great master Wang Zhizhi? The one he loves most. Gu Xing suddenly raised his head to look at me. How do you know? Not only did I know he liked Wang Zhizhi, I also knew that he had been searching for a copy of the Kuai Xiu Shi Qing Tai for a full year. I smiled. The real authentic piece was currently lying in our family's warehouse. It was something his father had bought at a high price back then just to show off. I took out the priceless authentic work from a box. Tomorrow, go personally pay a visit to Imperial Censor Chen's residence. Don't mention the examinations at all. Just say that you accidentally acquired this piece, and knowing that he is a true connoisseur, you specially came to ask him to appraise it. If he accepts, your position as the top scorer in the provincial exam can be considered secure. If he doesn't accept, it's no big deal either. You've been perfectly polite. He will only see you as a respectful junior who honors his teachers and values the way. His impression of you will greatly improve. Either way, you lose nothing. I placed the authentic calligraphy into his hands. Remember, the highest realm of gift giving is to suit the recipient's heart perfectly. To deliver charcoal in snowy weather, to give straight to the opponent's heart. So they cannot refuse. In fact, after receiving it, they will even have to thank you. Gu Xing stared at the Kuai Xiu Shi Qing Tai in his hands for a long time. Finally, he bowed deeply to me. Mother, I understand. He called me Mother. It was no longer the previous address full of hatred and vigilance, but one that came from the bottom of his heart, carrying a trace of awe and admiration. I was stunned for a moment before bursting into laughter. I had waited 3 whole years for this. Mother. The result of the provincial examinations held no suspense for me. Gu Xing placed first and became the G1. Imperial Censor Chen praised Gu Xing's essay highly on multiple occasions, calling it a talent that could shake heaven and earth. No one knew that behind it all was the contribution of one Kuai Xiu Shi Qing Tai. Gu Xing's name spread throughout Zhongnan in an instant. Countless invitation cards flew into the Gu residence like falling snow. Some came to congratulate, some to build connections, and quite a few wanted to marry their daughters to him. I blocked them all. It wasn't the right time yet. I told Gu Xing, your path lies in the capital, not in this small Zhongnan. In the spring of the following year, we set off for the capital to participate in the metropolitan examinations. Before leaving, my nominal husband Gu Xuming held my hand with tears in his eyes. Madam, you and Xinger are truly the Kulin of our Gu family. What virtue or ability does this Gu Xuming have to deserve this? I smiled as I listened to his stream of meaningless words, then directly asked, have you prepared everything? Gu Xuming was stunned for a moment before immediately bowing and nodding. He presented a heavy money pouch for the capital trip expenses, travel costs and social interactions. All astronomical figures. The Gu family was no longer the empty shell it had been 3 years ago. The few businesses I had Gu Xing run had all earned full basins and bowls of profit. Our trip to the capital wasn't just for the examinations, it was also for investment. The capital was the land beneath the sun of heaven's feet, the center of power. Every official and every noble family here could become support for Gu Xing's future or an enemy. As soon as we arrived in the capital, I had Gu Xing take my visiting card to pay a visit to the Grand Preceptor's mansion. My maiden family, my father, the Grand Preceptor, who had married off his second daughter to Zhongnan back then as a discarded chess piece, now saw me return leading a stepson with limitless prospects. One could imagine his attitude. Indeed, the Grand Preceptor's mansion was cold and indifferent toward me, their married daughter, but they were extremely courteous toward the Jiwen, Gu Xing. My stepmother put on a fake smile and held Gu Xing's hand, asking about everything. Her words, both overt and subtle, hinted at marrying her blood niece to him. Gu Xing handled it flawlessly, neither agreeing nor refusing, leaving them hanging with just enough hope. That night, he asked me why I bothered with those sycophants. Because they're useful, I said, taking a sip of tea. The Grand Preceptor is the current head minister. His connections span the entire court and country. Having this layer of relationship will save you a lot of trouble in the capital. Moreover, your marriage is an important political investment. Who you marry and who you don't. Everything behind it is an exchange of benefits. Right now, you only need to make them feel that they have a chance, so they'll exert effort for you. Once your wings are fully grown, won't marrying whoever you want be as simple as a single sentence from you. Gu Xing nodded thoughtfully. Before the metropolitan examinations, undercurrents surged through the capital. Examinees from all routes displayed their divine powers. Some buried their heads in bitter study, some ran around pulling connections everywhere, and others were plotting bribes and favors. I told Gu Xing to do nothing at all. Just focus on studying in peace. I had already looked into everything. The chief examiner for this metropolitan examination was none other than the emperor's own imperial tutor, Zhang Zhizang. Elder Zhang was even harder than imperial censor Chen, impervious to oil or salt. Anyone who tried to slip through the back door would be smashed straight into eternal damnation. Against a man like that, the only way to win was with raw talent. Sure enough, when the metropolitan examination rankings were posted, Gu Xing's name blazed at the very top. He had taken first place overall, the Huan. 2 consecutive top scores. The entire capital shook. Everyone knew that unless some heaven-defying accident occurred, this year's Zhuangjuan belonged to no one else but Gu Xing. Next came the final, fate-deciding palace examination. The night before I called Gu Xing into my room. I didn't discuss current policies with him, nor did I make him recite classics. I simply asked one question. Singer, do you know what His Majesty cares about most right now? Gu Xing thought for a moment. The northern Man tribes, or the floods in the south? I shook my head. Neither. I looked him straight in the eyes and spoke each word with perfect clarity. What His Majesty cares about most is whether the dragon throne beneath his backside is sitting steady. A paranoid emperor feared military generals holding real military power more than anything else. In the original novel, that young general protagonist had defeated Gu Xing in the end, not because he fought better, but because he knew how to appear weak before the emperor, and how to hand over military power in exchange for absolute trust. As for you, I pointed at him. You're too sharp, too obvious, too back. To back first place finishes from a young genius. In the emperor's eyes, that was not necessarily a good thing. Gu Xing's expression sank. Then what should I do? Hide your light, I said. In the palace examination, you must not shine too brightly, nor be too mediocre. Your policy essay should be beautifully written, but your views must stay moderate. Do not propose any radical reforms that would make the emperor feel you're impossible to control. At the very end, you must express boundless reverence for His Majesty. Make him feel that every ounce of your talent is willingly offered to him. You must let him see your ability. Even more, you must let him see your loyalty. The title of Zhuangjuan is too dazzling. We don't need it. What we need is a ranking high enough to enter the Hanlin Academy without becoming everyone's target. Bangyan or Tanhua is the perfect choice. A flicker of reluctance crossed Gu Xing's eyes. I knew that with his pride, forcing him to give up the Zhuangjuan that was practically in his grasp was pure torment. But he had to understand the tallest tree catches the most wind. Sometimes you step back one pace so you can advance 100 later. I gently patted his hand. Trust me. In the end, he nodded. On the day of the palace examination, inside the Golden Luan Hall, the emperor personally questioned the candidates. Gu Xing's performance was flawless, exactly as I had planned. He neither revealed his full strength nor appeared ordinary, yet every gesture radiated hidden sharpness and brilliance. In the end, the emperor swung his great brush and did not award him first place in the top rank. Instead, he named Gu Xing Tanhua, 3rd overall. When the news spread, many people sighed in regret for Gu Xing. Only he and I knew this was the best possible beginning. Tanhua Gu Xing was appointed as a compiler in the Hanlin Academy. A noble but powerless post, yet the very cradle that nurtured future grand ministers. Gu Xing had officially stepped into the officialdom. Life in the capital was 100 times more treacherous than in Jiangnan. This was the eye of the power vortex. Every single step had to be taken with extreme caution. The Grand Preceptor's mansion saw that Gu Xing had only become Tanhua instead of Zhuanyuan and immediately turned much colder. My stepmother stopped mentioning marriage altogether, which suited me perfectly. Gu Xing's days in the Hanlin Academy were far from comfortable. Most of his colleagues were arrogant descendants of great clans with eyes higher than their heads. Toward a nobody from Jiangnan with no background, they rejected him both openly and in secret. They dumped the most trivial tasks on him, sorting dusty old documents, copying memorials. When credit was to be claimed, they fought for it. When blame appeared, they shoved it onto him. Several times Gu Xing nearly exploded, but I stopped him every single time. What's the rush? I cracked melon seeds leisurely while talking to him. This is a good thing. A very good thing. Gu Xing frowned. Of course. I spat out the shells. They only treat you like a soft persimmon because they've lowered their guard. What you need to do now is not fight them over petty victories, but to perform the driest, most tedious work in your hands to absolute perfection. What is the Hanlon Academy? It is the archive of Great Joe. Those piles of old papers hide countless secrets, the promotions and demotions of officials, the rise and fall of families, even the hidden scandals of the imperial clan. Memorize them all. Categorize them clearly. Build your own private database. One day these seemingly useless scraps of information will become your deadliest weapons. As for those people, I laughed coldly. Let them be smug for now. The higher they jump, the harder they fall. We have all the time in the world to play with them slowly. Gu Xing listened and truly calmed down. He stopped complaining. He stopped arguing. He became like a massive crocodile lurking in deep water, silent, patient, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. He went through every single file in the Hanlon Academy, memorizing 100 years of Great Joe history, along with the full backgrounds and connections of every official, until he knew them by heart. His patience and brilliance gradually caught the eye of a few discerning people. One of them was the current 7th Imperial Prince, also the least favored idol prince, Li Xian. Li Xian had little ambition. He spent his days lost in poetry, wine, calligraphy, and painting, which actually matched Gu Xing perfectly. The two often discussed scholarship and slowly became friends. I told Gu Xing he could deepen the relationship, but he must not take sides. The crown prince's position was still undecided, and the princes were tearing each other apart. Our foundation wasn't solid yet. Picking a side too early would only turn us into cannon fodder. This 7th prince looked detached from worldly struggles, making him the safest person to associate with right now. Remember, before the situation clears, the best strategy is to offend no one while keeping a proper distance from everyone. Gu Xing agreed completely. The turning point came when no one expected it. The emperor wanted to compile a collection of previous dynasty historical records. The Hanlon Academy was ordered to organize the materials. It was an enormous, thankless task that no one wanted. In the end, the messy job naturally landed on Gu Xing's head. His colleagues waited gleefully to watch him fail. They had no idea this was the opportunity Gu Xing and I had been waiting for. Gu Xing worked without sleep for an entire month, organizing the mountain of documents into perfect order. Moreover, he used the modern library management methods I taught him to create a detailed, searchable catalog. Not only that, from one unremarkable miscellaneous note, he unearthed a heaven-shaking secret. Years ago, when the current emperor ascended the throne, a meritorious prince had been executed along with his entire clan for treason. But the evidence Gu Xing found vaguely suggested it had been a miscarriage of justice. The real traitor was someone else, and that someone was the maternal grandfather of the current crown prince, the immensely powerful Duke of Zhengyu. When Gu Xing told me about the discovery, even my hand trembled slightly. I knew our chance had arrived. We could not touch this discovery yet. I calmed myself and explained to Gu Xing why. This is the best opportunity to topple the crown prince. No. I shook my head. It's not time yet. The crown prince's roots run deep, and the Duke of Zhengguo controls the military. A single vague note isn't enough to move them. Reporting it now would only alert the enemy and drag us down with them. I looked at him sharply. We must keep this bomb in our hands and only throw it when the moment is truly critical. Then, when is that moment? When someone desperately needs this bomb. I smiled meaningfully. Gu Xing didn't fully understand, but he chose to trust me. He carefully hid the evidence, then presented the perfectly organized historical records to the emperor. The emperor looked at the clear, logical documents complete with a detailed catalog, and his dragon face lit up with delight. When he learned it was all Gu Xing's solo work, his praise grew even warmer. Gu Xing, we recall you are this year's Tanhua, the emperor said, eyes full of appreciation. Young yet steady and hardworking. Very good. The head scholar of the Hanlon Academy, Gu Xing's direct superior, hurriedly tried to claim the credit. Gu Xing, following my instructions exactly, neither boasted nor flattered. He simply replied, "This is all due to your Majesty's great blessing. Your subject merely fulfilled his duty." One sentence that elevated the emperor while showing perfect humility. The emperor was even more pleased. He immediately issued an edict granting Gu Xing full authority over the historical compilation, and promoted him 2 ranks to Hanlon Academy lecturer. All the colleagues who had once suppressed him were stunned. They never imagined the soft persimmon in their eyes had silently climbed above their heads. From that day forward, No one dared underestimate Gu Xing again. His position in the Hanlin Academy was now rock solid. Meanwhile, I began paving the road for our next move. Using the fortune we had accumulated over the years, I opened the most luxurious restaurant in the capital and named it Tianxia Tower. Tianxia Tower offered novel dishes and impeccable service, but its true value lay in becoming the ultimate information hub. I recruited quick-tongued waiters and an extremely clever princes, nobles, civil and military officials alike loved hosting banquets here. After 3 rounds of wine and 5 courses, countless secrets spilled out unintentionally. I had Gu Xing invite 7th Prince Li Xian to Tianxia Tower. Li Xian praised my business model to the skies. I casually leaked a few unsavory rumors about the Crown Prince and the Duke of Zhengguo, how the Duke's son tyrannically abducted civilian girls, how the Crown Prince lived in extravagant debauchery and favored treacherous flatterers. The information was half true, half false, but every word struck exactly where the emperor hurt most. Li Xian was smart. He understood my hint perfectly. He began mentioning these matters, casually, in front of the emperor. Once or twice might not matter, but repeated enough times, the seed of doubt took root. The emperor started secretly investigating the Crown Prince and the Duke of Zhengguo. Through Tianxia Tower's intelligence network, I fed perfectly timed pieces of evidence straight into the hands of the emperor's spies. Everything moved forward exactly according to plan, step by orderly step. Just as suspicion began eating away at the Crown Prince and the Duke of Zhengguo, an unexpected figure arrived in the capital, the true male lead of the original novel, that young general as bright as wind and moon. Lin Zhao had received an imperial order to escort the Northern Man envoy delegation. For his great achievements on the border, he was conferred the title of Mighty Marshal General. His fame soared overnight. I knew Gu Xing's real opponent had finally appeared. Lin Zhao was like a rock, both rotten and unbreakable. He was upright, honest, brave, and possessed nearly every traditional virtue. In the book, he was the embodiment of justice, the natural nemesis of villains like Gu Xing. Sure enough, shortly after entering the capital, Lin Zhao clashed with the Crown Prince's faction. The cause was the Duke of Zhengguo's youngest son, that notorious playboy, who had ridden wildly through the streets and injured a commoner. Lin Zhao happened to pass by. Without a second word, he arrested the man and sent him to the capital prefecture. When people from the Duke's mansion came to demand his release, Lin Zhao stopped them with one sentence. Even a prince who breaks the law is guilty as a commoner. The incident exploded. It eventually reached the emperor himself. The Crown Prince's faction fought desperately to protect their man, while the other princes happily watched the show and gave the Crown Prince an extra kick. The court turned into boiling chaos. Gu Xing remained coldly on the sidelines, observing. That night when he returned, he asked me, "What should we do?" "Nothing," I said. "Let the dogs bite each other." But in Gu Xing's eyes, a faint spark of fighting spirit flashed when he looked at Lin Zhao. This person is not simple. I knew. I nodded. He is a good blade. But right now that blade is in someone else's hand. What we need is to wait until he strays from the pack. The final result was a compromise. To appease the Duke of Zhengguo, the emperor only punished his son by cutting his stipend for 3 months and grounding him for half a year. To commend Lin Zhao's unyielding integrity, he rewarded him with plenty of gold and silver. On the surface, everyone was satisfied. In reality, everyone knew the grudge between Lin Zhao and the Crown Prince's faction had been sealed. Thanks to this incident, Lin Zhao gained the support of many upright censors and became a rising new force in court that could not be ignored. That same day, 7th Prince Li Xian came looking for Gu Xing with fresh news: the Minister of Revenue had been investigated for corruption. The position was vacant. It was both a fat post and a crucial one. Every faction in court was fighting over it until blood flowed. Li Xian wanted Gu Xing to help him place one of his people there. In exchange, he would fully support Gu Xing's entry into the cabinet. It was an extremely tempting offer. Gu Xing wavered slightly. I told him to refuse. Why? Gu Xing didn't understand. This is the best chance for us to enter the center of power. Have you forgotten what I said? Never choose a side easily. I looked at him seriously. The current board is evenly matched. The moment we pick a side, we become a thorn in the eyes and a nail in the flesh of the other factions. Besides, the Minister of Revenue seat right now is a pit of fire. Whoever sits there faces an enormous mess. The national treasury is empty. Years of war and disasters have left it in severe deficit. Whoever takes the post is holding a burning potato. Success is expected. Failure brings infamy and possibly becomes the emperor's scapegoat for his anger. So what we need to do is not fight for the position, but give it to our enemy. Gu Xing's eyes lit up instantly. You mean? I smiled faintly. Doesn't the crown prince always want to install his own people there? Then we'll help him do exactly that. In the following days, Gu Xing suddenly became unusually active in court. Using the convenience of compiling historical records, he cited classics and repeatedly emphasized before the emperor the importance of the Ministry of Revenue and the qualifications the new minister must possess. He never explicitly supported anyone, yet every word subtly pointed toward the crown prince's maternal uncle, the national uncle Li Wei. Li Wei was greedy and stupid. Aside from being the crown prince's uncle, he had no redeeming qualities. The emperor had never liked him, but he couldn't withstand the constant whispers from the crown prince's faction. With Gu Xing, the neutral, clean-stream talent, also arguing from a professional standpoint that Li Wei was suitable, the emperor was moved. He felt that having his own family member manage the money bag was at least more reassuring than letting untrusted people get involved. Thus, amid loud objections, the emperor overruled everyone and appointed Li Wei as the new Minister of Revenue. When the news spread, the crown prince's faction threw a grand celebration. 7th Prince Lishan was so furious he nearly smashed his teacup. He stormed over to Gu Xing to demand why he had betrayed him. Following my instructions, Gu Xing put on an innocent expression and explained, "Your Highness, please calm down." This official only discussed matters based on facts and never favored anyone. Although the national uncle's abilities are ordinary, his strength lies in being imperial kin. He can stabilize the situation. In special times, special measures are required. After the whole speech, Li Xian, though furious, could find no fault. Only Gu Xing and I knew the real show had just begun. Sure enough, right after taking office, Li Wei lived up to expectations and turned the Ministry of Revenue into a den of corruption. He blatantly replaced staff with his own people and eliminated dissenters. As for the empty treasury, his solution was simple and brutal: raise taxes. For a time, resentment boiled across the realm. I had storytellers at Tianxia Tower turn these events into ballads and spread them through every street and alley. The national uncle scrapes the land 3 feet deep. The common people cannot endure it. The Eastern Palace sings and dances every night while the treasury grows emptier. The people's grievances have reached their peak. Even officials who originally supported the crown prince began to waver. At this exact moment, Lin Zhao stepped forward. He joined dozens of censors and submitted a memorial thousands of characters long, listing 10 major crimes committed by national uncle Li Wei. The spearhead pointed straight at the crown prince behind him. That memorial exploded like a heavy bomb over the court. The crown prince's faction fought back with everything they had, accusing Lin Zhao of slander and claiming he was a pawn sent by other princes to stir trouble. The court descended into endless chaos again. The emperor's head ached from the noise, and for a moment he could not decide. He knew Li Wei was worthless, but Li Wei was still the crown prince's uncle. Moving against him meant slapping the crown prince's face, and the crown prince was the heir he himself had established. Right at this sword-drawn moment, Gu Xing submitted his own memorial. His memorial was short, but it carried far more weight than Lin Zhao's 10,000-word document, because attached to it was a detailed account book. That account book recorded every abnormal expenditure of the Ministry of Revenue since Li Wei took office, every unreasonable tax, and every tale of silver that had flowed into the Eastern Palace. All the evidence had been gathered bit by bit through Tianxia Tower's network and meticulously organized by Miss Xing's mastery of accounting. The proof was ironclad, undeniable. The Golden Throne Hall fell deathly silent. Every gaze locked onto Gu Xing. This youth who had always spoken little in court had suddenly become the center deciding the storm's direction. The emperor stared at the account book. His face turned ashen as iron, veins bulging on the hand holding his vermilion brush. He could tolerate greedy ministers. He could tolerate a foolish crown prince, but he absolutely could not tolerate anyone treating him like a fool. Gu Xing. The emperor's voice was ice cold. Are you certain this account book is true? I stake my head on it. Your Majesty. Gu Xing bowed. His voice rang clearly through the hall. Every word is true. The emperor closed his eyes. When he opened them again, they burned with towering rage. Men. Drag Li Wei away. Throw him into the heavenly prison and investigate thoroughly. Punish every person involved severely. Show no mercy. The crown prince knelt below, face gray as death, body shaking like a sieve. National Uncle Liwei collapsed straight to the ground, wetting himself in terror. The emperor looked at his useless son. A flash of disappointment and exhaustion crossed his eyes. Confine the crown prince to the eastern palace. He is to reflect on his mistakes behind closed doors. Without our edict, he may not step out even half a step. A heaven-shaking storm in court was thus ended by a single light account book from Gu Xing. National Uncle Liwei was ultimately sentenced to immediate execution. The crown prince's faction collapsed like a fallen tree scattering monkeys. Dozens of officials were implicated and thrown into prison. Although the crown prince's position was not yet abolished, it had become purely nominal. And Gu Xing, for his meritorious service in exposing the crimes plus his earlier achievements, was exceptionally promoted by the emperor to Vice Minister of Revenue, assisting in all ministry affairs. He had finally stepped from a noble but powerless Hanlin official into the true heart of power. More importantly, through this incident he had proven his value to everyone. He was not anyone's subordinate. He himself had become a force capable of changing the entire board. 7th Prince Lixian once again extended an olive branch, his attitude even more sincere than before. Even Lin Zhao developed genuine goodwill toward this colleague who feared no powerful factions and invited him to his residence several times for conversation. Following my instructions, Gu Xing kept a neither close nor distant distance from both sides. He now had his own cards and no longer needed to rely on anyone. After toppling the crown prince, a vacuum appeared in the court's power structure. The remaining princes fought even more fiercely over that empty throne. The capital had completely become a massive Shura field. Gu Xing and I stayed hidden in the eye of the storm, coldly watching them risk everything for that supreme position. I asked Gu Xing, "Do you still want to rebel now?" He stood by the window, gazing at the rolling clouds and rising winds outside. After a long silence, he shook his head. He turned back to me. The corner of his lips curled into an extremely faint smile that nevertheless carried a trace of demonic charm. Mother taught me correctly. Playing power games is far more interesting than raising armies and moving troops. I looked at him and seemed to see a future powerful minister slowly rising. No, perhaps not just a powerful minister. A larger, even crazier plan was slowly taking shape in my heart. After Gu Xing became Vice Minister of Revenue, the first problem he faced was how to fill the massive deficit in the national treasury. It was a dead-end situation. Raising taxes would spark rebellion among the people. Not raising taxes meant the state machinery could not function. The court had argued over this for more than half a month without any conclusion. The emperor simply tossed the impossible problem to Gu Xing. Everyone waited to watch him make a fool of himself. They all believed that although this young man had some petty cleverness, when faced with such a major national crisis he would definitely stumble. Gu Xing locked himself in his study for 3 full days and nights. On the 4th day, he came to me holding a plan. The name of the plan was rather strange: reform of state monopolies on mountains, seas, salt and iron. I took it and read. I smiled. Not bad. He even knew how to use state monopolies to cut leaks. The core idea in Gu Xing's plan was very simple: bring all the profitable industries, salt, iron, tea, wine under state ownership. The court would unify management and unified sales. This way, it would not only secure a stable source of revenue for the state but also prevent merchants from hoarding goods and destabilizing the market. In modern times, this was a very familiar economic tactic, but in this era, it was an earth-shaking innovation. This method can work. I nodded, then pointed out several issues. But have you considered whose interests this will touch? Gu Xing's voice grew heavy. The salt and iron merchants, along with the deep-rooted noble clans standing behind them. Correct, I said. Cutting off someone's path to wealth is no different from killing their parents. Once this policy is implemented, they will launch a frenzied counterattack. At that point, the opponents you face won't just be political rivals in court. Then what should we do? What should we do? I smiled. Naturally, we find someone to take the fall. No, we find an ideal ally who shares our goals to push this forward together. Ooh, Lin Zhao. Gu Xing was stunned. Lin Zhao. Will he agree? He will, I said with absolute certainty. Because on the surface, this policy of yours is a great blessing for the nation and the people. It strikes at greedy, heartless merchants, increases state revenue and stabilizes prices. It perfectly aligns with the political ideals of someone like Lin Zhao. Go talk to him. Package this policy as a grand reform for the sake of the common people. An idealist like him is the easiest to hook. We need to use his clean reputation among the literati to counter the resistance from the great clans, while he needs your position as Vice Minister of Revenue to provide practical support in implementing the policy. You two will play the classic good cop, bad cop routine. He will charge forward, waving the flag and shouting slogans, while you handle the concrete work behind the scenes and quietly take control of all the benefits this reform brings. Gu Xing's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He understood. This was a brilliant move of borrowing a knife to kill, or driving away the tiger to swallow the wolf. Using Lin Zhao, the sharpest blade, to chop through the hardest bones. No matter the outcome, we would benefit. If successful, we would gain both fame and profit. If it failed, that reckless Lin Zhao would be standing in front to take the blows. Mother. Gu Xing looked at me, his eyes filled with admiration. You truly are a genius. I calmly accepted the praise. Gu Xing went to find Lin Zhao. The process went even smoother than I expected. When Gu Xing laid out his grand reform plan without holding anything back, Lin Zhao's eyes lit up with fervor. He excitedly grabbed Gu Xing's hand and declared passionately that for the country and the people, he would never turn back. On the spot, he expressed his willingness to join hands with Gu Xing as comrades to push forward this magnificent reform. Looking at Lin Zhao's face glowing with idealistic radiance, Gu Xing nearly couldn't hold back a laugh. Very quickly, a salt and iron reform led by Lin Zhao, with Gu Xing supporting from behind the scenes, officially began in court. As expected, the moment the policy was announced, it faced frenzied opposition from conservative officials backed by the great clans. They slapped massive accusations on both Lin Zhao and Gu Xing, claiming they were seizing profits from the people and destabilizing the foundation of the state. For a time, impeachment memorials flew toward the emperor's desk like falling snow. But this time, the emperor unexpectedly stood on Lin Zhao and Gu Xing's side. The reason was very simple. He was out of money. An empty national treasury made this emperor extremely uncomfortable. Now that someone was willing to help him make money, how could he not be delighted? With the emperor's support, the reform began its difficult implementation. Lin Zhao fully displayed his hot-blooded nature. Like a warrior in court, he single-handedly debated against the entire conservative faction. His reputation among the clean stream officials and the common people soared to new heights. Everyone praised him as the censor who loves the bones of the people and the pillar of the nation. Gu Xing, on the other hand, remained very humble. He never participated in the court debates. He only quietly handled the concrete affairs during the reform process. He established a special salt and iron department, recruiting talents skilled in mathematics and business. He created meticulous sales procedures, organizing every link, from production and transportation to distribution, with perfect clarity. He even introduced the concept of shares, allowing certain imperial merchants to invest in the salt and iron department and share in the profits, thereby splitting and winning over the merchant class. All of this, I had taught him. I had taken modern corporate management concepts, made some adjustments for the era, and turned them into invincible weapons in his hands. The results of the reform were astonishingly obvious. In just half a year, the national treasury's income had doubled. The emperor looked at the piles of white silver and couldn't stop smiling. He repeatedly praised Lin Zhao and Gu Xing by name in court. Lin Zhao gained fame. The emperor gained money. And Gu Xing, he gained real power. The newly established salt and iron department was filled with his people from top to bottom. The nationwide salt and iron distribution network was firmly in his grasp. This was not merely a money-making tool. It was also an intelligence network spread across the realm and a web of connections he could mobilize at any time. He had begun transforming from a pure civil official into a powerful minister who controlled the economic lifeline of the empire. And all of this was accomplished quietly under the brilliant halo of Lin Zhao's righteousness. Lin Zhao considered Gu Xing his closest comrade and ideological partner. He had no idea that from beginning to end, he had only been a pawn, the most useful pawn. After the reform succeeded, Gu Xing's reputation reached a whole new level. He was no longer a Hanlin scholar who needed to rely on others. He had become a rising star in court whom no one could ignore. The emperor valued him more and more. The princes still fighting for the throne tried even harder to win him over. Even my father, the grand preceptor, shamelessly sent people bearing heavy gifts. Once again bringing up the topic of marriage alliance, I told Gu Xing to accept the gifts but continue dragging out the marriage talks. Our ambitions had grown far larger now. A mere legitimate granddaughter of the grand preceptor was no longer worthy of my son. That day, I was in the elegant private room of Tianxia Tower, listening to the manager's intelligence report when an unexpected person pushed open the door and entered. It was 7th Prince Lishan. He dismissed all his attendants. Behind the screen, only he and I remained. Madame truly possesses brilliant methods. Li Xian went straight to the point, his sharp eyes fixed on me. Salt and iron reform. Borrowing Lin Zhao's name to seize control of the nation's purse. Lord Gu's move was truly masterful. I lifted my teacup, gently blew on the hot steam, and said nothing. I knew he hadn't come today just to praise me. A wise man needs no roundabout words. Li Xian continued. The crown prince has been deposed. My brothers are fighting each other to the death. Father's health is declining. In the end, whose hands will this empire of Great Zhou fall into? That remains to be seen. He paused, then looked at me and spoke word by word. I want to fight for it. I set down my teacup and smiled. Your Highness is telling me this because you want Gu Xing to assist you, correct? Lishan no longer hid his ambition. I know Lord Gu listens to Madam. As long as Madam nods, there will be no problem on Lord Gu's side. I need money, I need people, and I need support in court. All of these, Lord Gu, or rather, Madam, can provide. After I succeed, I promise Lord Gu will become the head of the cabinet, second only to the Emperor and above all others. Madam will be granted the highest rank of imperial mandate and enjoy supreme glory. The conditions he offered were indeed extremely tempting. Anyone else might have been moved, but I only smiled faintly. Your Highness. I looked at him and spoke slowly. Head of the cabinet and first rank imperial mandate sound good, but have you ever considered an even better choice? Li Shan was startled. What do you mean? I stood up, walked in front of him, and lowered my voice to utter a sentence that caused his face to change dramatically. Instead of supporting someone else to become emperor, why not let Gu Xing take the throne himself? Li Xian's face turned deathly white in an instant. He staggered back and shot to his feet, staring at me in horror as if looking at a madwoman. You've gone insane. If those words get out, it's a crime punishable by the extermination of 9 clans. Your Highness, what are you afraid of? I calmly sat back down and gestured for him to sit as well. There is no one else here. Li Shan sat down stiffly, his body still trembling slightly. Gu Xinghe, the Gu family isn't the Li family. Does that matter? I countered. Wasn't the founding emperor of the previous dynasty also a commoner who rose from nothing? Princes, marquises, generals, do they have predetermined bloodlines? I looked at him and began dropping my heaviest bombshell. Your Highness, do you know Gu Xing's true identity? Li Shan's breathing quickened. He wasn't a fool, he had already guessed a certain possibility. He is the last remaining bloodline of the previous dynasty's crown prince, I said slowly. This secret was told to me by Gu Xing himself. It was also his greatest support for planning a rebellion. Now, I am turning it into the biggest bargaining chip in our negotiation. Li Xian was completely stunned. It took him a long time to digest the information. When he finally found his voice again, he spoke with difficulty. Even so, what of it? The previous dynasty is already gone. Relying on an empty identity to change dynasties is nothing but a wild delusion. Of course it's not just the identity, I smiled. We also need your Highness. I nodded. Although you are an imperial prince, you have no advantage. In terms of legitimate birth order, you cannot compare to the crown prince. In terms of maternal clan power, you cannot compare to the 3rd prince. In terms of military achievements, you cannot compare to the 5th prince. If you want to sit on that throne, you can only play an extremely risky move, and we are your greatest opportunity. My voice was full of temptation. Think about it. If we cooperate, you in the open, us in the shadows, you use your status as an imperial prince to develop forces within the court, while we use Gu Xing's identity and the wealth in our hands to secretly contact the remnants of the previous dynasty, recruit soldiers, and prepare our forces. When the time is right, you launch a coup inside the palace to cleanse the court of treacherous ministers. We will raise troops outside the city in the name of restoring legitimate rule. At that time, the world will be ours. I looked at him and threw out the final bait. After success, we can divide the realm. You rule as king in the north, Gu Xing rules as emperor in the south. The river will serve as the boundary. The two sides will coexist without interfering with each other. Wouldn't that be much better than your current situation? Living in constant fear, never knowing when you will become meat on someone else's chopping block. Li Xian's pupils contracted violently. I knew he was moved. No prince could resist the temptation of the throne, and no one on the verge of defeat could refuse a chance to flip the board. I need time to think. Of course. I stood up. Your Highness may consider it slowly. However, opportunities wait for no one. I opened the door and saw him off. Looking at his dazed, soul, lost back, I knew this fish had bitten hard on the hook I cast. The most deadly and sweetest hook of all. Grooming wanting to become emperor was an incredibly insane idea. Yet it was also incredibly exciting. The moment the thought appeared in my mind, I thought, since we've already come this far, why not go even bigger? Being a powerful minister or a great corrupt official still meant living under someone else's roof. Only by firmly grasping one's own fate could one truly be safe. I returned to my room, poured a cup of wine, and drank it in one gulp. A heroic spirit burned like fire in my chest. I had raised this son for so long. It was finally time to take him out and play one truly massive game. After Grooming learned of my plan, he remained silent for a very long time. He showed neither shock nor fear. He only calmly asked me, "Mother, how confident are you?" 50%, I answered. Too low. Not low at all. I looked at him. In the game of plotting to seize the throne, even a single % of hope is worth gambling on, let alone 50. Our greatest advantage is that we are hidden in the shadows while our enemies fight openly in the light. They are still killing each other over the throne and have no idea that the real threat comes from a place they cannot see. Li Xian will be our best shield. He will attract all the firepower for us. As for you, what you need to do is continue climbing higher. The higher you climb and the greater your power becomes, the greater our chances of victory. Grooming nodded. The same mad flame that burned in my eyes now blazed in his. I understand. From that day onward, Grooming changed. If he had previously been a sharp sword hidden in its sheath, now he began to gradually reveal his edge. He no longer deliberately kept distance from Lin Zhao. Instead, he actively cooperated with him, using Lin Zhao's enormous reputation among the clean stream officials to build his own fame. He also stopped rejecting the overtures from the other princes. He navigated between them skillfully, using their conflicts to seek benefits for himself. His official position rose rapidly, from Vice Minister of Revenue to Minister of Works, then Minister of Justice. In just 5 short years, relying on his superior methods and outstanding achievements, he entered the cabinet and became the youngest Grand Minister in the history of Great Zhou. Meanwhile, using the financial power of Tianxia Tower and the Salt and Iron Department, I secretly wove an enormous web for him. That web covered all of Great Zhou. It included the absolutely loyal remnants of the previous dynasty, border generals we had bought over, eyes and ears planted in every yamen, and various Jianghu forces we had fattened with money and benefits. We were like a giant spider, quietly waiting for our prey to walk into the web. Li Xian eventually agreed to cooperate with us. He had no other choice. Under the joint suppression of the other princes, he was in an extremely dangerous position. Cooperating with us was his only path to survival. Thus a bizarre political alliance was formed. On the surface, Grooming was the right-hand man of 7th Prince Li Xian and the core figure of the 7th Prince's faction. But in the shadows, Li Xian was merely a pawn we had pushed onto the stage. We were waiting for one opportunity, an opportunity that could shake the entire Great Zhou. That opportunity arrived in the 2nd year after Grooming entered the cabinet. The old emperor fell gravely ill. Lying on his sickbed, he no longer had the strength to handle state affairs. Yet the matter of the heir still remained undecided. The adult princes, in their final struggle for the right of succession, completely tore off their masks. The capital was filled with killing intent. The 3rd prince colluded with the commander of the imperial guards to plot a palace coup. The 5th prince secretly mobilized border troops, intending to march on the capital and force his way onto the throne. The entire capital became a massive powder keg. One spark would cause it to explode. Everyone knew a bloody storm was about to descend, and this was precisely the best opportunity I had been waiting for. "Make your move," I said to Grooming. Grooming nodded. An invisible net tightened silently in the stormy night. The first to cry out was the 3rd prince. He believed he had bought the commander of the imperial guards and held victory in his grasp. He didn't know that the commander had long been one of our people. When he led his men charging into the emperor's sleeping palace, what awaited him was the personal guard of 7th Prince Li Xian lying in ambush. A planned coup instantly turned into a suppression of rebellion. The 3rd prince was captured on the spot. Early the next morning, Li Xian dragged the bound 3rd prince into court. He wept before the emperor's sickbed, accusing the third prince of treason. Guxing, acting as a witness, presented secret letters exchanged between the third prince and the imperial guard commander. Of course, the letters were fake. But at that moment, truth and falsehood no longer mattered. The emperor flew into a rage and ordered the third prince stripped of his title and imprisoned for life. The third prince's wings were completely plucked. Before people could recover from the shock, the fifth prince's rebel army arrived outside the capital. The fifth prince raised the banner of clearing the court of treacherous ministers, declaring that seventh prince Li Xian and Guxing were evil officials who had imprisoned the emperor and issued false edicts, throwing the realm into chaos. The capital fell into crisis. The court was in panic. Some advocated for peace talks, while others called for a desperate defense. At that critical moment, Lin Zhao stepped forward. He volunteered to lead troops out of the city to confront the rebel army. I knew this was the inevitable choice for a loyal minister like him. I also knew this was the best opportunity to remove this obstacle once and for all. I had Guxing fully support Lin Zhao in court and generously hand over the city defense army, recently taken from the third prince, to Lin Zhao's command. Li Xian also pretended to be deeply moved, praising Lin Zhao as the pillar of the nation. Lin Zhao was so touched he shed tears. Leading a ragtag army that was almost useless in combat, he marched out of the city with heroic spirit to face the enemy. He thought he was going to save the country. He didn't know he was marching to his death. Lin Zhao's fate held no suspense. He led a motley crew, while the fifth prince's border army consisted of battle-hardened wolves. After a brief clash, Lin Zhao suffered a crushing defeat. In the chaos of battle, he was shot dead by an arrow from the fifth prince's vanguard general. When the news reached the capital, the entire court was shaken. Despair fell over everyone. They believed the capital could no longer be held. Many officials had already begun secretly preparing to open the gates and surrender. At that exact moment, Guxing stood up. He received an imperial decree and was appointed by the emperor as the supreme commander of the capital's defense, with full authority over protecting the city. He climbed onto the city wall, facing the black sea of rebel troops outside, and the panicked soldiers and civilians within. He delivered a speech worthy of being recorded in the history books. He didn't spout empty heroic words. He simply told everyone what would happen to their families and their wealth once the city fell. Using the most primal fear, he ignited everyone's will to survive. Afterward, he opened the national treasury and took out all the wealth accumulated since the reform began. Part of it was used to reward the troops, while the rest was directly distributed to the civilians defending the walls. If you hold the city, this gold is yours. If you lose the city, your lives will belong to others. Heavy rewards produce brave men. The desire to survive, combined with the stimulation of money, caused the previously demoralized soldiers and civilians to erupt with terrifying fighting spirit. The next 3 days and 3 nights became an extremely brutal siege. The fifth prince's rebel army charged the walls again and again, only to be beaten back each time. At the foot of the capital's walls, corpses piled up like mountains and blood flowed like rivers. Guxing stood on the watchtower the entire time, armor never leaving his body, personally beating the war drums to boost morale. His tall, straight figure became the spiritual anchor for all the defenders. Even 7th Prince Li Xian was moved by his spirit. Looking at Guxing, he felt for the first time that perhaps handing the empire over to this man wouldn't be a bad thing. On the 4th day, just as the capital's defenders were running out of ammunition and supplies, the turning point arrived. Outside the city, a large army suddenly appeared under the banner of pacifying the South. They delivered a fatal blow to the 5th Prince's rebel army from behind. Caught between 2 forces, the 5th Prince's army collapsed instantly. The 5th Prince himself was cut down from his horse in the chaos. The capital was saved. When the general of the pacifying the South army removed his helmet, revealing a face that bore a 70% resemblance to Guxing, everyone was stunned into silence. It was the Prince of Zhenan of the previous dynasty, the last remaining military force of the old imperial clan. The final fruit had ripened. The Prince of Zhenan walked before Guxing, knelt on one knee, and loudly declared, "This subject has come to the rescue too late. Long live your majesty, long live, 10,000 years." On the city wall, everyone was dumbfounded. They looked at Guxing, then at the Prince of Zhenan, their minds completely blank. Guxing slowly descended from the wall. He helped the Prince of Zhenan to his feet, then turned to face everyone both inside and outside the capital. His voice was not loud, but it clearly reached every ear. The previous dynasty has fallen. A new dynasty must rise. From this day forward, I am the master of this world. In the first year of the Kaiyuan era, Grooming ascended the throne. The process was so smooth it was almost unbelievable. After the old emperor heard that the fifth prince had been defeated and the capital saved, he couldn't catch his breath and passed away. Seventh Prince Li Shan was the first to step forward and support Grooming as the new ruler. When the other ministers saw which way the wind was blowing, they all fell to their knees and shouted, "Long life." A dynastic change was thus completed in an atmosphere that was almost peaceful. No large-scale bloodshed, no prolonged war. The great Zhou had fallen. A new empire had been born in Grooming's hands. I, in my capacity as the new emperor's mother, was honored as Empress Dowager and moved into the most magnificent signing palace in the imperial palace. On the day of the grand Ascension ceremony, I wore the complicated and majestic robes of the Empress Dowager. Sitting high on the imperial platform, I watched Grooming don the dragon robe and ascend the supreme throne step by step. He accepted the worship of the 100 officials. His expression was indifferent, yet it carried an innate imperial majesty. 1,000 emotions surged in my heart. Looking at him, I seemed to see again the 10-year-old boy from years ago, carrying a bowl of poison, standing before my bed with dark eyes. Who could have imagined that the child, who once only knew how to clumsily seek revenge, would one day become the master of the world? And I, a soul from another world, had personally created an emperor. The feeling was simply too satisfying. After the ceremony ended, Grooming dismissed everyone and came alone to Signing Palace. He had changed out of the dragon robe into simple casual clothes. He walked up to me just like he always had and naturally poured me a cup of tea. "Mother." His voice carried softness I had never heard before. I accepted the teacup. "What are your plans for the future?" he asked. "Plans?" I laughed. "What plans can an old woman like me have? I'll just stay in the palace, enjoy my retirement, and watch you do a good job as emperor." Grooming looked at me with serious eyes. "Mother, without you, there would be no me today. This empire was won because of you. Whatever you want, I can give it to you. Power, wealth, or if you want to rule from behind the curtain as regent, that is not impossible either." I nearly spat out the tea in my mouth at his last sentence. "Forget it." I waved my hands repeatedly. "I have zero interest in dealing with those trivial memorials. They're nothing but chicken feathers and garlic skins." I looked at him with deep sincerity. "Singer, you are the emperor now. There is still so much you need to learn. How to balance the court, how to control your ministers, how to bring peace to the people. All of that, you must figure out yourself. Everything I could teach you, I have already taught. The rest of the path you must walk on your own." I paused, then added one final sentence. "But there is one thing you must remember well." "What is it?" I leaned close to his ear and lowered my voice, speaking the most important words, as both his mother and the guide of his political career. "It's fine to be an emperor, but you must never be a good emperor. Water that is too clear has no fish. A court that is too clean cannot function. What you must do is become the greatest corrupt official. Seize all the wealth in the world into your own hands, then use that money to raise the strongest army, dig the widest canals, and do whatever you want. As for the scoldings from the censors, just treat them like the wind passing your ears. History is written by the victors. As long as you ensure the common people have food to eat and clothes to wear, you will be remembered as the greatest emperor of all time." Grooming was stunned for a long time after hearing this. Finally, he smiled. That smile was like melting snow and ice, carrying a sense of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted. "Mother, I understand." He stood up and bowed deeply to me. This son will respectfully follow mother's teachings. Watching his departing figure, I knew my mission had been completely fulfilled. I had successfully raised a vengeful, rebellious youth into a deep-minded, qualified, perhaps even outstanding, emperor. What kind of emperor he would become, I didn't know. But I knew one thing for certain: he would never become a knave fool who allowed others to slaughter him. That's enough. I lay down on the soft bed, closed my eyes, and prepared to begin the retirement life as Empress Dowager that I had always dreamed of. Eating my fill and waiting to die. This book Transmigration trip had truly been worth it. True power is not forged in the heat of impulsive bloodshed, but woven silently in the shadows of patience and intellect. The story teaches that raw anger is a brittle weapon, easily broken by those who control the rules. To conquer your enemies, you must first conquer your own reckless urges. Mastery lies in understanding the board, anticipating the moves, and letting your opponents defeat themselves through their own greed and blindness. Ultimate victory belongs not to the one who strikes the hardest, but to the architect who flawlessly designs the game, making the world willingly surrender to their mind. The story ends here for now. If it touched your heart or left you thinking, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Please like, subscribe, and share Raccoon Tale to help more stories come to life. See you in the next tale.